Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Receive Experience podcast. This is Tyson Bradley, and I'm just on a mission to help you learn all the ways in which you can connect to God in a more conversational way. That receiving and listening to God is something that's easy and it becomes a lifestyle instead of something that you do once and when you're struggling and then don't do again until the next time you struggle. All I know is that I have found my life to be drastically improved, more peace, more freedom from fear and shame as I listen to God. And so God has an identity for you. He has a mission and purpose for you. He has the most unending love for you. And when you continue to dwell in that love, then life becomes more sweet. So today I interview my friend Johs Wu. He is a coach. He was working with Identity Exchange and still connects with them, but has done a lot of work on himself in the realm of listening to God. And so these are just the conversations I want you to be a fly on the wall for. And that's kind of what this one ended up being like, is just us catching up, learning about one another and the lessons that we've learned along the way. I feel like I walked away with a powerful insight. There's a moment where something dawns on me. There's a question that I've been holding on to and debating and asking different people. And I think it finally clicked for me in this conversation. So you can find out what that part was and text me or whatever, or send me an email or put a comment in the message below and say, I think this was the insight that you gained. So I just look forward to you tuning in. I'm just going to go segue right into the conversation. So here you go. You get to enjoy my conversation with Johs Wu.
Yeah. You wrote a children's story, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yes, I
Well, I
did.
just remember you like sending a message about that, and I didn't like know any context, and we didn't talk about it. So I'm kind of curious about what that's been like and where it is now.
Oh, I wrote a musical last year, and it was with the community, and I wrote it with a good friend of mine. And part of it is I also wrote a book, same story, but a different format. And it's kind of like it's sing-songy, like poetry type of stuff, kind of Dr. Seussish type, but it's has a lot of meaning in it. I remember when I wrote it and I had my daughters look at it, and they're 14 and 12. And they looked at it and said, "Who's your target audience?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking everybody. I want kids to be able to read it and have fun with it, but at the same time, it's got pictures and everything. But then at the same time, they can ask their parents, and the parents can look at it and say, I don't know what this means, or maybe I do. Let's discuss it." So the book is called The Golden Wish Junior, and it's about identity and overcoming generational iniquity.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a little picture book. I do have a copy. It's like right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Let me
Now,
send this. Sure
I
to
know,
send you a copy.
I know. Well, I know that a lot of stories they have either personal ties to them. I'm curious whether there's personal ties to this.
There is. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of his identity. So I think we all
Yeah.
struggle with it. And personally, I do too. And generational iniquity, right? Things in your life. And a lot of time we're performing or because of our parents' fears or the way that we're raised.
Hmm.
And so how do we break that cycle? And inside the story, there's somebody who's kind of the picture of perfect love. And it's kind of interesting because my daughters were reading it and they were telling me saying, people may misunderstand, including the musical, that there's like a romantic relationship between the main character and the other main character, the boy and the girl. And I said, well, wouldn't perfect love also include romantic relationship too? Even as we think about Jesus and the bride, him being the bridegroom and the church being the bride and things like that. It's like that doesn't sound very platonic to me. And there's
Hmm.
a lot of different parts of it. So it's like, why not put that as part of it? Because we should have that kind of a desire to be and spend that time with them as well. So there's that. So for me, I think really learning and receiving how we are loved and to love ourselves that way. I think that's where it touches upon me as well. It's a fictional story and it takes place in
Right.
a fictional town. But yeah, it's funny how much fear may be how we raise our children. And I was trying writing that to help try to not do that with my own kids as well.
Mm. Because when you say generational iniquity, like what does that mean to you?
To me, I think there's like patterns in our lives that we do things. And I think about how they'll say like it may pass on to like third, fourth generation. I look at it as
Mm.
more as like people back then maybe had children when they're younger. So you can have
Mm.
a grandparent or great grandparent that's like 65 years old or something. So they all live together. So you're seeing everybody do these things and act these ways. So how do we not do that and project that onto our kids? And same thing is to do with our coping mechanisms. So maybe it is some substance abuse, maybe it's just the way we act, the way we lash
Mm.
out, or the way that we put on a mask and we don't be true and self-protect and self-promote, right? So there's things like that I feel that we do as part of like generational equity because we see our parents do the same thing and then maybe they do the same thing with their that the parents had. And so we learn from them and trying to break that cycle
Mm.
so that way it doesn't go into our children as well.
What's it been like to like introduce them to listening to God, or like how do you go about that and teaching them that?
Actually, it's they've been really good about it. I think they've been both of them have done it and they've actually have confessed. Well, the older one has confessed to me that she's when the first time she listened to it, she was kind of making things up
Okay.
because she wanted to
Mm.
please me, right? At the same time. But then at the same time she said, "Oh, well, I do actually talk to God regularly already." That was like her thing. And my younger one really got into it. And we've seen some great things happen. We've seen some healing. We've seen some just encouraging words, some issues with maybe even combating depression. I think that's
Mm.
been really good that they've been able to open and share that with me in a totally different level. So for sure, the identity, listening, prayer
Mm.
stuff has been amazing when it comes to transforming and then building our relationship.
That's cool. What's your identity, by the way?
Oh, my identity is a friend first and light bringer.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. One of the first identities that I received was light bringer and restorer.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
What
And
does light bringer mean to you?
yeah, so man, there's one aspect is because it's paired with restoring, it's this idea of can I bring can I bring the light of Christ into like any given moment and then restore people to the truth of who they are, the light that they have. Another way I think about it is light, like a lightness. It's like, can I
Mm.
bring a lightness to the situation? Because I know that I'm much more fun when I'm not so serious, because I tend to be serious. I don't know, I get focused on things. And so when I can bring a lightness and receive a lightness, then man, everything just seems better that way. So that's a little bit of what I've explored, but it's always just an unfolding. So I'm curious as for you, what's it been like?
That's actually really interesting because just recently, I think just this past week, I had that kind of a light meaning behind it as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was doing an exchange and I exchanged an artichoke, and we won't go into all that, but an artichoke for this fluffy marshmallowy type of thing. And when it came to me, my first response was, but I'm pre-diabetic. It's like,
Oh, there you go.
and his response was, lighten up. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, and that really spoke to me because there's a heaviness, weight, like heaviness when it comes to how serious we are with our lives and how we do things because we want to be in control and we
Hmm.
want to be the one who's responsible and then we judge ourselves really critically as well. So it's really a good reminder to say, hey, lighten up. It's okay. Even in my imagination, you don't have in your imagination, you don't need to worry about diabetes, you know?
Yeah. That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
because there is the practical of like, I want to live my life healthy. But when we get into worrying about our health and being in fear about our health, that drives us into greater lack of health,
Absolutely.
right? So that's cool. So you got a light, fluffy marshmallow.
I got a light fluffy marshmallow. So that
Done.
was the first time that I got something besides like truth and
Mm,
light, yeah, as in light, right? But
yeah.
now something light, as in not heavy. That's the
Yes.
first one that first time I had that. So that was
That's
good.
cool.
Yeah.
And then originally, like as you have been, I guess for you, like what's it like to, I don't know, live from identity? I feel like I keep forgetting,
Hmm.
even just like to wake up and to know, oh yeah, that's who God calls me, and that's how I either am to show up or designed to show up when I'm in my, I don't know, in my best place. But what's it like for you to apply yourself to identity?
I think being intentional is very important. And I think my first identity was friend first. And it first
Mm,
came to me as friend. And yeah, as people who go through the intensive at what's called, I guess, experience right now, for me, it's always been whenever he tells me something, it's always, I always reject it almost right away.
mm.
So, yeah, because I hear people with like warrior and healers and generals and things like that. And I got friend. And when I first heard it, it was straight up like, no, Lord, this isn't gonna work. So you're gonna
Mm,
have to try again. So I don't know, it was several weeks. It was several weeks until finally I came to the point of just saying, okay, Lord, let's do a do-over and you can do this again. And I remember sitting at a outdoor mall with my family was in there shopping and I sat on a bench and I was like, okay, what do you call me? Right? I go through the emptying, going through all that exchange. What do you call me? And he said, friend. And I was like, and then suddenly I hear from my right, my eyes are closed, right? I hear from my right somebody yell friend to another person to my left, just like friend. And I was like, all right, fine. And then once I did that, I started receiving it and then that's when I got into friend first and then
mm,
got into the Good Samaritan and I saw how
mm,
that worked in. And as I start seeing that and I look back in my life, I found that that's where I've always had the most comfort and I had a good flow, right?
mm,
Where it was like, this is who I am. But before, part of it would be comparison, right? Where you're saying,
mm,
why aren't they or other people, why aren't my friends doing this towards me? So I always felt like I love my friends more than they loved me.
mm,
Why is that? Yeah, there's always this comparison part, which is not healthy. But once I understood, it's like, okay, well, that's my identity. That's not their identity. It started becoming better. So I started applying it to different parts of my life. And when I get up and even with my kids, with my friends, my coworkers or whoever, it's always been like, okay, how do I apply that first as being their friend first rather than the other way around?
mm,
And so the one thing I learned recently too, though, is you can go too far with it,
mm.
which is like that sounds weird. Like how can you go too far
Yeah.
with your true identity? And that to me is when you start striving and start pushing on that it goes so far that from humility becomes like self-deprecation,
Mm,
where a friend first becomes I'm last. Which so then eventually when we talk about like I think the true identity is like the other side of your fears. And that's why it points
mm,
to on the other side of the coin, right? So then that's your calling. Like I'm sensitive to that, I'm afraid of that, but that's where I'm called to become friend first because I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of being of rejection, things like that.
oh
But
yeah.
but when you go too far with it, and then you start like self-deprecating, like for me, being friend first, and then I become me last, and I become no worth, or I start thinking that I'm not worthy or I'm not
Mm,
enough, it feeds into the fear side. So the coin flips again, and now you're going back to the other side. So I had to learn that that's not what I should be doing. It's because I'm doing, right? I'm not being.
mm,
And I am going way too far with that. And now it becomes about me, and I take my eyes off of him. And then
mhm,
where's the true source of all this? So say, okay, let's not strive, let's not go too far. And That's
Mm.
how I can walk in my true identity and be more comfortable with it. And then I'm okay with it. At that point in time, you just let go. You're like, this is who I am, and it's
Mm.
okay. And it's hard for me, the way I was raised too, is to receive that, yeah, I am a gift to the world. I am a gift to the world as being friend first, not doing, yeah, friend first.
Yeah. So as far as protecting yourself from going too far, how do you do that?
That's a good question. I think I'm still learning,
Mm-hmm.
definitely learning how to do that. I think always trying to see myself and going to him. I think that's one thing that I don't do enough is ask. When it comes to my own life, I don't ask enough. I say, okay, Lord, what do you say?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about me? Sometimes I focus on the task and I ask him his opinion about the task or something else, but then I forget about myself.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's quite often what we do is that we fall into that trap of like, okay, Lord, just give me an answer to this. Tell me how I should do this in my way or the way that you created me. But then you never sit there like and say, Lord, how do you see me? How do
Mm.
you how do you accept me? How do you show me who I am? How do you show that you love me the way that you created me?
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, you mentioned just that if, as we are listening to God and as we even hear what he calls us, start operating in that, if at any point in time it transitions to this is now a task that I need to accomplish in order for me to be worthy, in order for me to be the best version of myself or whatever. Like, I just think that the moment that this becomes a tool that must be accomplished for any sense of wholeness, it's like, then it can turn into performance and then we're out of it.
Yeah,
We're,
yeah. The
you
focus is
know,
on just the results, right?
yeah, yeah. Versus, and I really like what you said about like, because I find myself, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And instead of just, Lord, how do you see me? I just think that that question to me strikes at the center more than what do you want me to know or what do you want me to be? Because if I just focus on, Lord, how do you see me right now? Then I believe that as I just accept his love for me in this moment, I will naturally show up in the best way. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's a big shift
Yeah.
from focusing on performance and just looking through his eyes. When you're talking about that, it just made me think about like my own kids. And that's part of that. I'm trying to walk with them with the identity and listening prayer
Mm-hmm.
is not focus on how they do, school grades, things like that. Of course, I want them to try. I want them to put in the best effort, things like that. But that doesn't define who they are. So regardless of what they do, they're still my daughters, and I still love
Mm-hmm.
them regardless. I have pictures of my girls in my office here, and I see them. I have a timeline that they made in their first grade, so I can
Oh,
see the
okay.
pictures, and it just reminds me. And I remember they were out of town, and I was looking at the pictures, and I'm just like getting all choked up. And I was like, it's just a picture, and they're at that age. They barely did anything besides, just life, survival. But
Mm-hmm.
just that's like that's, and I think sometimes like that's why we have kids. That's why it's like for
Mm-hmm.
us to learn another level of love and then have a glimpse into how he loves us. So how does he love us that we don't have to do anything, and he just loves us unconditionally, and even more so, even more than we could ever imagine for ourselves. And I think that learning to receive that is one of those challenges I'm going to be learning as I'm transforming the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. I remember learning about just the receiving side of identity. It's like if he calls you friend first, then he's also inviting you to allow him to be your friend first,
Hmm.
right? You
Yep.
know, it's like if I'm a light bringer, I am to receive. I'm a light receiver first, and then I can bring the light, to other people. So I I don't know. I feel like that is the work, this work of receiving, this work of, can I wake up in the morning? Can I accept just how much he loves me? And before I do, before I get caught up in the doing or the distractions or whatever else is the habitual, default path of my life. So I'm curious as to like, how did you get to the point of getting into identity? Like, what's the story leading up to where you are now?
Oh, that's a good complex story that happened in a really short period of time, I think. Because the last few years, I had I've always felt some sort of sense. When I was younger, especially, I think there's always been, I've been in the Word a lot, but at the same time, I always had more kind of relationship with Him.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it was, in some ways, when I was younger, it was more naive and innocent, which was probably better.
Yeah.
And then as you get more educated, you start forming all these structures and formulas on how you're supposed to act. And then I would say
Yeah.
the problem with formulas is that you may inadvertently or intentionally leave him out of the equation. So that's kind of part of like how do you have this constant, like good, organic, generative type of relationship with him? So there
Mm.
was a period of time that it became more heady, more knowledge based, and I was pursuing career, I pursued all sorts of different things. And then at that point in time, I remember maybe it's that type of thing where you just cry out to God, where you're like,
Mm.
okay, I don't know what's going on, and I need to cry out to you. And in desperation, you just, in some ways, it's just completely emptying kind of confession. And I was in changing careers and or jobs, and at that time, I called out, and he was like, "Time to leave, time to
Mm.
move." And then it's one of those interesting things where like I had a deadline and he met the deadline way before that. And just like how people in the Bible react when an angel appears or a miracle happens, you fall on your knees, you're like, I'm not worthy. Like
Mm.
it's not this like thing where you're like, I won the lotto, yay, I'm gonna go buy everything. It's more like, oh no, I'm not worthy for all this, because of who you are and then who you think you are. So that's where some of that starts happening. And I remember I had switched, and then within a really short period of time, God told me to leave again. And it was a very big inconvenience for me and my family.
Mm.
And it was moving from one side of the country to the other side of the country, back to the other side of the country, like literally west to east to west coast, as almost as far as you can go. And so when that happened, I remember I had my landlord over in New York. He said, have you heard about Jamie Winship? And I was like, oh, no, I haven't. And so he sent me a podcast, and typically I get a lot of podcasts and people referring things. I'm like, I don't have time to listen to this stuff.
Mhm.
And then finally I was like, you know what? If I'm serious about this, and I've actually been for the last prior 2 years or so like that, been talking to some close friends about hearing from God.
Oh,
It's like, why not do this? Like more, not like just like occasionally, not just like when things are really desperate, but like abiding. Like, what does
yeah.
that really mean? What does praying unceasingly mean? That kind of stuff. So if I had this link, I just think if I was like, why not? Why not listen to it?
Mm.
And it was the Antioch tapes. I think everyone heard the same ones, right? The
Yeah.
junior high camp. And I was sitting going, oh, it's a four-parter? Or I think it
Huh.
was four parts, right? And
It was, yeah.
I was like, okay, and junior high camp. I was like, why am I gonna listen to this? And then I
Uh-huh.
was sucked in.
Yeah.
Like right away, I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And so from that point in time on, it was more intentional, I would
Mm.
say. And then going through the intensive and catalyst and the training and all that kind of stuff, then it really became more and more part of my life, more intentional. I've listened to all Jamie's stuff and everything else, hundreds and hundreds of podcasts and stuff. And then also the coaches, like when they're on your podcast, I listen to all those as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What's been the biggest shift for you in all of that?
Hmm. The biggest shift. I think the biggest shift is receiving. I have a very, very hard time receiving.
Hmm.
I feel like I have to perform. I have to earn things. And that kind of goes back with one of the things I struggle with is just not being enough, my own self, my own value and worth. And which is, kind of makes sense why I was saying if you go too far with the identity, suddenly I'm last. And I remember a friend of mine tells me that sometimes to be friend first, you gotta, or you have to go in front of your friend to open the door for them. So sometimes you gotta be first,
Mm.
not put yourself last. And that was really good for me. So learning to receive has been a big, big deal. I think the last few years, that's what he's been working a lot in me and
Mm.
through me is receiving, because then I see that also being an issue for other people receiving. So being friend first, they had to receive me being their friend as well. But then I also had to receive that they actually are accepting my friendship.
Mm.
There's a little difference. Like, no, I'm not talking about just like a once a year happy birthday thing. But I mean like actually being friends, picking up the phone call, right? I'm learning a different level of connecting with people and learning how to be a friend first even better.
Mm.
Because to me, before it's more like a one-way street. I I receive, which quite is it really receiving? Receiving other people's their confessions or their feelings, stuff like that. But I'm self-protecting and I don't reciprocate. So
Mm.
then how does our relationship become closer, right? If I'm just only taking, but I'm not actually giving any of me as well,
Mm.
because at the same time, I don't, how do I value myself that I can actually exchange it? How do
Mm.
I actually exchange that part of me that that's broken, that is weak and vulnerable? And it's funny, it's like I would never feel that way about anybody else. If they were to
Right.
share about their life to me, I'm like, wow, thank you. Thank you for honoring me by sharing this stuff with me. But on the other
Mm.
hand, it's the other way is like, well, if I do this, then not work out. Yeah, they're gonna reject me. They're gonna like think I'm less than.
Mm.
But it's all a lie, right? It's all a lie to keep us separated from all that, from each other.
Right. As you've like worked and coached other people, I'm curious as to like the patterns that you've seen as to either what keeps people from that kind of connection and what keeps people from living into the truth of who they are. Just what are you noticing?
There's a lot of performance. There's
Okay.
just a wrong view of themselves.
Mm.
It's nothing new, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's unique to ourselves and our circumstance, but it's just lies that we tend to cling to about ourselves, about him. Where you're talking about the relationship, I had a relationship with God before that I felt that he was too big for me. He was,
Mm.
God's too big for everything. So I have a wrong view of him in the sense of like, well, I believe in miracles and all that happening with other people, but not for me. And then once I experienced it, then I'm like, hold on, did you get the wrong address? Like where
Mm.
did you send that package to the wrong place? This is me, and then I start doubting him even more, which is really strange. You would think that instead of increase. And one thing I learned recently, especially, is that sometimes, even when I'm feeling strong with my faith in him, it once he opens doors or he has paths and he creates there's opportunities for connection or whatever. And sometimes my shift from my hope in him shifts to those things.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a danger that we all have because we're like, God, you're giving me all these things. And then they don't happen. You're like, why are you teasing me? Rather
Mm.
than looking at it as these are like steps of faith. And you're learning to be like, no, no, I'm showing you something. I'm showing you potential, but I got something even better for you. So
Mm.
just hold on. There's something coming. But you didn't even have that before. And I learned that that's I had to keep my eyes on him rather than those things. Because those things are quite often tied to results as
Yeah.
well. Or,
Yeah.
them of doing things like that. Rather than like, no, you got these because I love you, not because you did anything or you earned it. But those are just to give you a glimpse to show how much not only do I value you, but you are actually loved and honored by other people. But they're like, well, then I need to do something. Yeah, where's my part in all this? And then I think that's the problem is that we end up fighting those things, right? I when somebody tells you like, hey, I got your back, you're like, no. No, I got to get my own back.
Yeah. Well, I gotta let God get my back.
Yeah. I think something real time for me last week before.
Yeah.
The week before I had a like an epiphany in some ways.
Okay.
Because I was talking to a good friend of mine and we were talking about which identities in the Bible or which characters in the Bible do we relate to and what about them? And one of my good friends talked about how he felt that he related to Peter,
Okay.
specifically Peter when he denied Jesus 3 times. And so he's like, well, I think that Peter knew what he was doing. And when he said it, it was like first time, second time, third time. Like he knew, and it wasn't like something that slipped out. He made
Mm.
cautious decisions on those. He said, I relate a lot to that. And I understand that there's redemption down the line and all that kind of stuff. But, that's, those are those steps that I do. Then I struggle with those things. And while he was telling me that, he was sharing his story, I was praying and I was hearing, and then something hit my heart. And I was like, do you think Jesus was cursing Peter? And he was like, wait, what was that? One more time? I was like, yeah. Do you think that when Jesus told him earlier that he was going to deny him before he had denied him, do you think he was like cursing him? Or do you think he was shaming him? Or do you think he was doing that? I said, that's right after Peter was telling him that he's got his back, that everyone else can leave, but he's going to stay with them. But why would Jesus then respond with something like that if he is the incarnate of perfect love
Mm-hmm.
on earth? Would perfect love say that to you? And so he thought about it and he's like, I don't think so. I said, then what's the point? Why would he do that? Why would he say that? Because if you look back on it, Peter went and denied and he remembered. And when he remembered what happened, he viewed it as if it was like a shameful thing. I don't think that that was the purpose of that. It just doesn't make sense to me. Because I know
Mm.
that's what most of the I hear in sermons, podcast commentary. That's kind of like this whole thing about like, oh, he did this and then he felt bad and then God redeemed him. But on the other hand, it's like, well, I think that he was letting him know, like, when you separate from me, when you physically separate from me, even at this time, we're separate. You may be filled with fear. You may say and do some things that you regret, but it's okay. I love you, and I love you enough that I
Mm.
will even send a reminder for you to come back to me. I'm gonna send a rooster to crow. On the third time, of course, I could have sent it on the first time and the second time. It just every single time that you do it, it's like crow. We're doing it again, crow, and I was like, but it's okay. I'm gonna call you back, and I love you. It's fine. And to remind, so we had to learn to look at the past or the future and the present in His
Yeah.
presence, right? So when we look back, they say, what did God see? God saw somebody that He loved, was not surprised, not disappointed, but still love Him the way He
Mm.
is, and just remind Him to come back. So for me, that's been something I'm learning because, as well, I relate to that as well. I sit there and go, oh, I don't do things accidentally most of the time. If I stray or I do something that I shouldn't be doing, it's quite
Mm.
often I do it because I'm coping or I'm rejecting myself or doing whatever. It's intentional. I'm
Mm.
not, and then what happens with that? I start beating myself up. I start
Mm.
spiraling. I start
Mm.
feeling shame. And that's not the intention at all because I got to look back at that and like what is. But of course, I'm not creating permission to just do whatever. But at the same time, as well, I should be filling up with more of his presence and what's good.
Mm.
And then once I'm filled with that, and I've been learning that a lot more recently too. It's like there was the whole thing about there was another verse that just changed the way I looked at it. Like I heard this interpretation of it. It's the one where they talked about the harvest is plenty, but
Mm.
the workers are few. And everyone usually focuses on like there's all these lost souls and sinners and people out there, and we need to rescue them. We need to save them. We need to bring them. And probably truth that's basically where most people go with that. But I was thinking, it's like, how often is harvest actually associated with sinners and brokenness and the lost? So usually it's associated with blessings.
Mm.
So there's a lot of blessings. And how many times do you see harvest and workers within this close proximity to each other, right? And the only one I could think of is Ruth,
Hmm.
where there was a harvest. And you think about it at the time, they're even the Levitical law, whatever, is like you're not supposed to go out and glean all the way to the edge. You're supposed to leave things for others. And who are the workers? The workers weren't just the Israelites. It was also non-Israelites, people that journey in, strangers, anybody goes in the field, they can pick it up. There's so many blessings that we need that we're just not going out and receiving. So it's quite often we focus on all these other stuff, like trying not to do bad things rather than receiving all the good things. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a new shift for me as well. It's like, okay, see things as God has and receiving all the good that He has for us.
Yeah. Instead of trying to work for it and be one of the few workers that has to do a bunch of work to get the harvest. Is
It's
that
like,
kind of the idea?
well, it's like there's plenty of harvest.
Yeah.
And all of us workers just got to go out and grab the blessings as
Yeah.
well.
They're there for the taking.
They're there for the taking. I think, this whole new level of relationship is also includes questioning. I think we take things sometimes just straight up face value. And I think with people I do coach, one of the patterns also I see is people just like me not asking. So they'll assume when they hear something that they know what it means. I
Hmm.
say, "Oh, what did God tell you?" And they'll tell me something. Like, for example, I had one recently where he told me, I confessed and I candid over that I was restless. And he said, "Go be reckless." So in my mind, I already knew what reckless meant.
Hmm.
So for weeks, I was like, how do I be reckless? It's not my personality. I wouldn't do something like, I don't even know. What are the opportunities to be reckless? And I'm like going through all that. And then I had a listening prayer where I was on a ship. I don't know if you want to go for the, or a boat.
Yeah.
And he was the breeze that filled my little sailboat and pushed it along. And he said, it's going to be bumpy, but it's going to be wreck less.
Ah, yeah.
I would never even like
Haha.
connected that to. I would not have connected reckless with shipwreckless, you know?
Yeah.
So I think quite often what I do is ask people like, well, is that what you so you heard that, but did you ask him what does he mean by that? What does he
Yeah.
want you to know about that? And they're
Yeah.
like, well, I already know. Like, but did you ask?
Yeah.
So I think myself, I think when we're just part of being a coach is being a reflection and
Hmm.
sharing your own story to a certain extent and being able to say, hey, I didn't know what reckless was. I had back in October last year, I learned a new way where every time I was going through a listening prayer, I would fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
And I would like, what is going on? Like daytime, morning, afternoon, evening, sitting, standing, whatever, it's like maybe not standing, but
Yeah.
just like all these different ways, I would just fall asleep. And I would get frustrated after every time. And that went on for like 3 weeks, almost every day, maybe a couple times. And I just get frustrated. And then I remember as I was going through it, being led through a listening prayer by another coach, and then going saying, wait a minute. He was like, hey, relax, sit down. And then it started tying into like how many times does God put man to sleep? Think of Adam, just in the very beginning, Adam and
Hmm.
Abraham, knowing what they needed, creating a covenant that only he walked through. That's not even on you. Things like that, it start on me connecting. And just because originally I was just like, I had to perform, I had to, but that
Mm.
was the first time that he spoke to me in rest. And I started realizing there's so many different ways. And usually when I do get like that instant, maybe audible type of thing, it's not on the things that I want. I want that kind of like a fast response to. But then other these types, they're like being learned to be aware and sensitive to all the different ways that he may speak to me. When I say speak, I mean sense, word,
Right.
visual. I had one earlier this year where it was like a slideshow imagery,
Mm.
and then it all made sense like 2 weeks later,
Mm.
where I was at Catalyst in Phoenix, and they were doing a listening prayer over there in a group, and then suddenly it was like, no, this all makes sense now. So it started flooding in. But I think
Mm.
part of that is just constantly asking and seeking. And quite often, sometimes I don't even do that. I just forget to. So I got to tell you, sometimes the performance side of me goes, well, if I did ask at the time, would I have gotten the answer sooner or not?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You start like so things. No, no, no. It's perfect timing. I'm the Kairos is there, right? And I met it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can. That's the thing. You can get in the danger of taking any good tool and making it into performance. You could take your identity and turn it into performance. You can take anything and it can become a task that you then had to complete in order to be enough, you know? So it's just like, can I remain loved in his sight? Can I operate from that and be okay with however things go? You know?
Yeah. Like, how can operate and see myself the way that he sees me, so that way I can be who he sees me to be to myself and other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, without needing to be in a rush to do it.
Always so impatient.
Josh, we gotta hurry. We gotta hurry about this.
There's not enough time.
There's
It's
not
just
enough
not enough
time.
time. It's getting older. My kids are getting older. They're going to be going to college soon. What am I going to do? All that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I think you were gonna say something though.
No, that you talk about not enough time is something, yeah, I struggle with all the time. I think as we get older, especially, and
Mm.
things happen to your body that remind you that you're getting older, and you
Oh,
start going, "Oh, wait, okay, I can't abuse this temple, you know, because that's not, it's not good for yourself too." And I think
yeah.
sometimes that just falls into the whole like value and going even like I said, going too far that friend first, me last. So I think that's
Yeah.
quite often what happens is when we don't when we especially when we don't know our identity too.
Hmm.
We don't know our true identity. We're not walking on it. We are we sometimes use whatever that feeling we have from our true identity that we're sensing and we misinterpret it.
Mm.
And then it becomes a conviction and guilt or something else that it's not intended to be. So yeah. Yeah, this thinking sometimes that happens too. You're like, well, I'm not being who I'm supposed to be, and they don't even know who you are. So, but I'm running out of time doing being who I need to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm coming out of this, but something that I find that I still struggle with is like, okay, I'm listening and I'm seeking to listen all the time, but if I don't listen, if I don't listen as much as the standard that I have for myself, which is usually perfection, that's the standard. So if I'm not perfect, if I don't listen perfectly all day, 24/7, then I'm less than, you know, then it's like even listening to God becomes a performance metric that I judge myself against. It's like that's not the deal. That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Not what we're signing up for.
Yeah,
So
my standard's not usually perfection. I'm still having a hard time being that. So
yeah, man. What's God kind of inviting you into now?
so I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people have a word for the year, and then
Thanks.
sometimes they
Yeah.
even have like a story or something that like last year my it was my Joseph to Daniel year.
Okay.
And then this year is my Abraham to Moses year.
Mm.
And what that looks like is basically that God had told me that he's getting the Egypt out of me, but he's sending me back to Egypt as not an Egyptian. And so that's trying to figure out what that is. And I've seen little bits and pieces here and there. My background's in Hollywood for 30 years, in the marketplace for over 20 years. And now I'm in ministry for the last year. So just what does it all look like
Hmm.
that if I when I go back to what is Egypt, right? What is Egypt?
Yeah.
What is it to be Egyptian? And I think it's different for each person. And for me, there's this empire portion but yeah, that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah. So have there been ideas percolating just like of that or what the any like specific project that God's kind of leading you in or
Well, there's a few different projects. I
Yeah.
worked on a feature film this year. I'm working on some writing for other projects on the side. So,
Okay.
we'll
Yeah.
see. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but if I'm being invited into them and see what happens. Some stuff came and went. I was mentioning earlier about focusing on opportunities instead of focusing on him. So as I
Oh,
shift my focus
right.
back on him, I'm not focusing so much on the opportunities in the sense of like, oh, if this doesn't happen, oh wow, if this happens,
Right.
my whole life's going to change. It's like, no, my life changed because of him,
Mm.
not because of these things that are being presented to me. Like I said, they're just steps of faith. So right now I'm trying to take it one at a time. And like I said, try not to act like I'm running out of time on all of them.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like, oh, well, if I were to take a nap right now, sure, I have more energy, maybe a little more awareness of what I'm doing, but then it sucks up, 20 minutes of my time. I should be working on this thing. There's like a
Right.
little bit like, oh, I can go and go out with friends and with my family, but then I still have this stuff to do. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying not to do that so much. I'm trying to be present with
Yeah.
him and each circumstance that, okay, because I gotta tell you, I know I'm guilty of this, is I tend to live in the future, but
Mm.
with the future, but in the present with the future fear.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I look at the future false and then I bring it into the present. And it affects the way that I act for myself because I'm like, okay, it's all on me. And if I don't, that's what's going to
Mm.
happen. So there's a lot of, is it like, what do they call it? Like a pre-mortem or something. Yeah, like when everything goes wrong, this is the reasons they go wrong and what I could have done to prevent
Mm.
that from happening. So
Yeah.
I need to do all these things. So I've been learning to try to let that stuff go and spend the time and like, you know what? We're gonna go out. I'm gonna take my kids, go for a walk or go do something.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I'll be gone for like 2, 3 hours. Fine.
Yeah.
And not sit there while I'm there thinking about what I could be doing and all these opportunities that he's given me that I'm gonna miss or I'm gonna mess up.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about you, but sometimes I like I and I've asked a couple of people this, and I'll ask you this, but say the example of a nap. You recognize in your body that you're tired, and that a nap would probably be helpful. But there's, you know, in my mind, I can think, well, is this what the Lord's inviting me into? Like, is He inviting me into this nap, or is this just something that I want to do? Where's the line between me being very deliberate about asking the Lord all the time questions like, okay, what about now? What do you want me to know right now? Versus I'm just going to operate from a flow of just being loved and then we'll just see what happens because I see a benefit when I am deliberate and I do ask the Lord questions because I end up doing God's work in a lot of good ways. Like the other day when I'm asking the Lord, where do I walk? I could go about that walk in one way, which is I just go and I walk. And my default way of being would be I don't talk to anybody. I don't do anything but go on this walk. But when I start talking to the Lord, He invites me to go and and I talk to a neighbor.
Mm.
So I'm curious about like without getting into the lens of like there's a right way and there's a wrong way,
Mhm.
but it's just like I see a difference and I experience a difference. And what is that like for you?
I tend to like want to make a formula out of it as well.
Yeah.
I think we're just part of it, part of it's being lazy, to be honest. It's like, okay, certain circumstances. I could tell you, like, when I used to play solitaire on the computer back in the old days, I used to create like like a rule, like I always use from the right to the left or something like that. So that
Okay.
way it's always known. And if I didn't win that time, it's because I just followed these rules.
Mm.
So I gave up all of my own free will or whatever and responsibility. And then I said, okay, then whatever happens, happens, and it didn't happen, and that's whatever happened. Yeah, it is. So I try not to, and I think your idea about like right and wrong is a good point. I think how
Yeah.
does it each circumstance and how do we always have him like conscious of him being with you all the time?
Yeah.
I think that sometimes it's like that's the key is that is he there all the time? If he's there all the time and you can see him and you really feel him there, then you're gonna take a nap. You'd be like, just like look at him, like, yeah, okay. You don't even have to like think too much about it
Yeah.
and just learn just how to receive that experience from him. I am not at that point, I can tell you that. I have a tendency of like forgetting to even that he's even there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't even ask.
Yeah.
But I've been learning to build on that a lot more and just be really deliberate. And part of that is just even in the times I sit there go, okay, I can take a 20-minute nap or I can worry for the next 30 minutes about taking a 20-minute nap. So if you want it from like a measurable standpoint, it's
Yeah.
like that's where the line draws. Where it's like if I'm going to worry about this for the next half hour, I might as well just take a nap for 20.
Yeah.
Right. So that's on a practical note. I think
Yeah.
God does give us some wisdom, like, that doesn't make a lot of sense
Yeah.
because it's not good for you and it's also making you feel worse, if anything, on a different level, not even physically. And I have actually a tendency of internalizing things. So usually you can tell how I am based on my health. And I've been
Mm.
learning because it would manifest, like the fears and anger, stress would manifest in my health.
Mm.
So I've been learning to give that more and more away. So I sit there, oh, you know what? I'm not having headaches. I'm
Hmm.
not like having stomach issues. I'm not having all sorts of different kind of issues. Like maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But it's just trying to like recognize things in my body as well as other things around and how many different ways. Because I'm sure he's not just saying, if you don't get the special code number, the particular message that time at this specific way, then I'm not talking to
Yeah.
you at all. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's like bombarding us with things a lot of the time. We're like, okay, I don't feel anything, because it's so subtle or so loving that he's trying to do it, trying to give it to us. So yeah, where's the line? My line is where it obviously makes like no sense. Otherwise, I just try to go to him all the time.
Yeah.
Just, is it what that intentionality? Is it a negative thing? Is it more effort to do that? I think if we, just like anything else, if we do it more and more often, it
Yeah.
becomes like just part of your nature, the mind of Christ, that praying unceasingly part. Because what is praying anyway? That's part of it. I think we get so formal with it.
Yes.
And we do ACTS, right? And then, but prayer and supplication is different as well. So if we take supplication out, what is prayer? And a lot of people
Hmm.
just focus on Thanksgiving, which is really important for sure. But what else is it? Do I only talk to him when I have a question, a decision to make? Or do I also cry out to him? Do I, how do I remove those barriers that I already put up that I'm separating from him? And as I learn to do that more and more,
Mm.
I'm more able to receive what he has for me.
Okay. So here's what's coming up for me. We've lived years of life and have developed habits, default ways of living, default ways of thinking. And just like any other habit formation practice, it takes effort. Like, you want to get better at tennis? Go play tennis. You got to be deliberate about it. There's no other way that you can get better at tennis. You know, you could even and you could say, yeah, I could visualize playing tennis, and yes, that does help. And there's science behind some of that too. But it's like you gotta go play. You
Hmm.
gotta go do it. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, what if it's okay that you you do make it a deliberate practice. You put in effort to remind yourself. How many times can you remind yourself today? Sure, you might say that it's measurement, it might feel like performance. It's like, how can you get to the point where it is the default? Where you have replaced the way of life that you used to have, which was you don't talk to God at all, or just at a couple of times a day, versus I'm just talking to him all the time because that's what I've practiced. And now it's the muscle memory of me living a life of listening. You know, to me, that sounds like what is occurring, but because if I look at it through the lens of fear, it's always going to become performance. But if I look at it through a lens of just like I'm learning a skill of always looking to God and all that I do, and it is a muscle that I can train, at least for me, and then it becomes just like a game. It becomes something that's like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to practice this because I want to live a life of listening.
Well, I think the opposite. You said fear. You could do it out of fear, or you could do it out of love, right?
Yeah.
Because I love doing this. I love to spend time with them. I love hearing that I am his light bringer, his friend first, that he loves me. I think you said all those years that we lived for all the consequences and things that we try to avoid because we don't want to be told that we're stupid, that we're rejected, that we're not good at something. But then we start building that versus why don't we do things because we love it? Like if you play tennis, you say, I love tennis, but you play it once a year. It's like, do you really love tennis? And are you really going to get any good at it? And I think he's taking us to a new level all the time when it comes to that, but not thinking that like we're going to be playing Wimbledon or the US Open or something tomorrow because we
Mhm.
love tennis, but it takes us step by step. And I actually have this practice with some of my clients that what we do is I said, okay, this is the phone call thing we talked about earlier. I
Okay.
said,
Yeah.
okay, when you feel like, oh, something happened, I should have done that, just give me a call or text me. If it's inconvenient or you can't get a hold of me, just say, hey, I did this. And I'm going to remind you at that moment, one point, I said, let's ask God. What does God tell you? First step. So the next step, hopefully over some time or right away, the next step would be next time I get a text or a phone call, it would be, oh, it's it's going to be before it. I'm feeling something before it actually, right? And I said,
Hmm.
oh, let's go ask God. The next level up would be, hey, I asked God, and I'll ask, well, what did he tell you? And he'll tell me. And then what did he tell you he wanted you to know about that thing? And be like, oh, I forgot. Then the next level. So
Yeah.
hopefully step by step, it's just like that reminder is some of it starts with decisions or when you feel bad, right? Like, why do I feel bad?
Yeah.
How do I prevent from being feeling bad?
Yep.
No, it's not about preventing feeling bad. And then you just kind of go build upon it. So I've been working on this kind of progressional. It almost sounds like a
Mm.
formula, but it really isn't. It's more like just prompts that we run into in our life and it's just basic principles and say, hey, you feel like that. It's like, call me and I'll remind you, talk to our best friend.
Hmm.
That's it. You're like, oh, I'm just not, just call me. It's good. So we
Yeah.
start building that towards that direction because I see that with myself too, that I need help and it's in community that we remind each other who God
Yeah.
created us to be and then remind us to say, hey, I'm glad that you called me because I'm a real, like a person, human flesh, human here but then just to remind you that you also have somebody who will hear, who will let you know. And sometimes we get stuck in that rational side of our brain and we just like, I don't really, I don't know, God might be busy right now. I don't know. He may not. So we
Mm.
start self-protecting. But you can call Tyson, you can call Josh, and then we can go through it.
I think if we get caught up too much in, I don't want to make it a formula. mm, Part of me thinks, oh, well, the formula is go to God. Like, go to God,
It's a
be in
principle.
relationship. Like, whether you call it a principle, whether you call, like, there
Yeah.
is some aspect of doing that is helpful for our brains to understand. It's like, yeah, your doing is to be, your doing is to abide, your doing is to recognize that Jesus is right here with you and he loves you, and then operate from there. You know, is to remember. And so whether whether or not we label it as formula, it I think what makes something a formula is when we attach ourselves to, I don't know, whether it's attaching ourselves to our worth to it, attaching God's love to it, attaching that it becomes conditional. I think
I think
that's
when
the
you remove
difference.
him and you set standards and expectations regardless of him, I think that's quite often what happens. Like if I do these things will for sure happen without his intervention, without him, any experience of him at all. And I think that's where it becomes really formulaic and that we're like, well, we don't, I already know what you're supposed to say to me. I expect these type of results. And so I'm not really open to receiving something else beyond what that is. And I think that's what the formula is, that it becomes this cookie cutter everything. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that's
Well,
what for me that would be the difference.
yeah. Yeah. Well, if the formula is separated from him,
Hmm.
if whatever we do is separated from him, yeah, that's not it. That's not it's not the way. The way is not to rely upon the formula for your results. And like you said, the expectations and of it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. Learning. Yeah. As I keep talking with people, I think it's just wheels are turning about, oh, okay. Like letting go of, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it's been that I've held on to with that kind of question. I think it mostly comes from a place of there being a right or wrong way about all of this. And I need to find out the right way.
So what's the different ways that he does? Do you actually hear from him?
A lot of times it's, I guess, words to my heart. I have experienced just a sense of peace. I've experienced images. And lately I had an interview with a guy by the name of Braxter Kruger, and he invited the question of like, ask the Lord, what are 5 different ways you've spoken to me, in the past day? And had a day a couple weeks ago where I was just the whole day or many times in the day, I was like, I would have a thought or whatever. I was like, Lord, was that you? And I was surprised as to how many times it was. I was like, oh, I thought that was just me, but that was you. And so just opening my eyes to, I think the Lord talks to us a lot more than we think. So
How's that changed over time in your relationship with people? I mean, you've interviewed quite a few people. You spend a lot of time with
yeah,
people specifically on this topic.
yeah. Well, I think that's the thing is that the evolution has been, oh wow, God speaks to us a lot more in so many different ways. I've learned that in listening a lot, I then created a rule about how God speaks to me.
Hmm.
So now if I don't get it in that certain way, then I'm now in a place of doubt and questioning. So it's just like, okay, you can practice this enough, but then you form a different kind of habit, a habit that can also still remove you. And this was recent. It was just recognizing, wait, I think the Lord's speaking in all the different ways. And this is my position, just open. Let me just be open, receive it all. However you want to talk to me, Lord, like however we're going to do this today, let me just operate from that. And I know that there's extra levels. There's no end to the depth of my understanding of his love. I love continuing to learn this because it's the fact that I can have a conversation with you and still walk away just like, oh wow, yeah, okay, that's a new level, new insight, a different way that I didn't think about before, and now I just get to live that out and deepen my understanding, deepen my relationship, let go of all the rules that I didn't know I had. Yeah.
That's good because I was just thinking like you talk about like expectations and the formulas and everything. And when it doesn't happen, just like I was talking about those opportunities, they come and go, and how we sometimes steal ourselves. We from having being disappointed or
Oh,
frustrated
yes.
or hurt. And how do we move on from that point on rather than just like creating coping mechanisms in its place? Just wonder how do you do that?
Well, one thing that a friend recently taught me was that's been really helpful is in Romans 6, Paul is talking about being dead to sin.
Hmm.
Like that's who we are. Like that's part of our identity is we are dead to sin. So and, and the way he described it is like when a temptation or a distraction or a way to cope with with life comes, that's not you. And when you can identify with the fact that you are dead to sin, like that isn't who I am. And I know even from like studying identity that when we even say the phrases of like, that's not me, I don't do that. Like the truth of who I am is not someone that engages in that. It changes you. You do that enough times and you will find yourself living in a new truth. The real truth of who you are, not the one that uses coping mechanisms to get you away from feeling what you're feeling now or from whatever's, in front of you. So that's been really helpful for me recently, is just how can I reckon myself dead to sin and alive in Christ.
It's like, that's good.
If there was anything God would have you say right now, I want you to just take a moment. What does God want you to say? Share as a last parting word.
It's funny. The word that came to mind for me was move. Just move. Don't get stuck.
Yeah.
Move.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this conversation that I had with Joshua Wu. If you are interested in his book, I'll put a link in the description. And if you are wanting to dive deeper into listening to God, we have a couple of resources. One is the Hearing God Challenge that you can join. We do that every month or other month, and it's just a deep dive. It's like, how much can I receive within 5 days and see what changes in my life occur from really making this a deliberate practice. It's kind of a jump start to you listening to God, making this more so a lifestyle, and just seeing what God can take of you and create the most amazing and shame and fear-free life that you can have. So I'm excited to just offer those things to you. You can see it in the description. You can go to hearinggodchallenge.com or receiveacademy.com. All right. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later.